If you're someone who is afraid of bugs, if you're someone who is creeped out by the very sight of bugs, I give you permission to just squint drastically or turn away from the television screen for just the next few seconds. Because this right here is a tiny little guy, kind of sort of looks like a caterpillar, kind of sort of appears to have cute little bunny ears up by its head, see? This is a distinct species of something called a springtail. This particular species of springtail that you're looking at is named after a current member of the United States Senate. As you can see down there on the bottom, the official name of this rather adorable little bug is Cosbarella Lamar Alexanderi. This little guy was named after Republican Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee for two reasons. First, physical resemblance. I'm not kidding. The scientist who discovered this cute bug a few years ago said that its checkerboard coloration sort of resembled the trademark red plaid shirts that Lamar Alexander used to wear all across the country when he campaigned for president in two successive election years. See? Sort of. Maybe a bit of a stretch. Maybe if he wore bunny ears. More importantly, however, this charming little bugger was named after Lamar Alexander because of Senator Alexander's long-standing support of federally funded scientific research. It was an honor paid to him because he supports government-supporting science. The bug is now off the screen, so you can feel free to turn back to your television. If you are a member of the modern-day Republican Party who has had an insect species named after you because of your support for federal funding of science, that is both inherently awesome and it means you are probably not going to be the biggest hit at the next Republican power cocktail party. Today, Republican Senator Lamar Alexander announced that he is resigning from his leadership post as the number 3 Republican in the Senate. This amid speculation that if he was going to resign from the number 3 job in order to run for the number 2 job in the Senate, he would not win that election. Mr. Alexander is currently the chairman of the Republican conference in the Senate. He is quitting that job in January. Now, Senator Alexander enjoys a nearly 80% lifetime rating from the American Conservative Union. And on a whole host of issues, he is pretty much a Republican's Republican. Back when he was running for president in the 1990s, he pledged to never, ever, never raise taxes. He was against the minimum wage. Yeah, rejected any and all gun control measures. Even though he was previously the nation's education secretary, he ran for president on a platform of abolishing the Department of Education, which he used to run. But in this year's version of the Republican Party, even a record that conservative is not conservative enough. Republican sources telling CNN today that Senator Alexander likely chose to leave the Republican leadership because some conservative members of his party think he is too moderate. In addition to being sort of suspect because scientists named a bug after him, Lamar Alexander committed the cardinal sin of working to cut down pollution from coal-fired power plants. He once supported a bipartisan health reform proposal. Ooh. Remember when the bipartisan Senate Gang of Six was going to be the group that came up with a big deficit deal? Lamar Alexander endorsed the Gang of Six end product. So he endorsed a bipartisan thing. And now, of course, that means Lamar Alexander has got to go. He is too moderate for a leadership role in today's Republican Party. That dynamic in the Republican Party, the dynamic between the Republican Party and the far right-wing edge of its base, tells you a lot more about what's going on in national politics right now than anything going on the other side of the aisle. It's particularly anything going on between President Obama and his base. Right now, Republicans nationally, as well as the Beltway media, are busy accusing President Obama of pandering to the extreme left wing of his Democratic base by calling for tax increases on corporations and on the wealthiest Americans to help balance the budget. As the Republican attack goes, it's only the far, 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 far left, like the Maddow left, that wants this sort of thing. And shame on Barack Obama for giving into those left-wing crazies. According to conservative columnists like David Brooks of the New York Times today, quote, President Obama repeated the populist cries that fire up liberals, but that are designed to enrage moderates and conservatives. You want to see how enraged moderates are at the idea of tax hikes on the wealthiest Americans? 65%. That's the percentage of moderates in the latest New York Times poll who say they support tax hikes on the rich. The number was even higher in a recent CNN poll. The number of self-declared moderates who support higher taxes for the rich, 74%. A Marist and McClatchy poll, 80% of moderates tell Marist and McClatchy that they would be for a plan to raise taxes on the rich. That mirrors the 80% of moderates who told the Washington Post the same thing last month. 80% of moderates favor tax hikes on the rich. If that's the Democratic Party's base, 80%, then frankly, Democrats are pretty psyched. More likely, it's that the Beltway pundits, who are either Republicans themselves or just in the business of parroting Republican Party talking points, more likely it is that the punditocracy is wrong about this. What the president is doing does not appear to be a play for the Democratic Party's base. It will likely make the Democratic Party's base very happy, but it's also going to make happy huge majorities of Americans who agree with President Obama on the substance of what it is he is proposing. The only people who are not into ideas like President Obama is proposing, the only people who are not into the idea of raising taxes on the rich in order to close the deficit is the very, very tiny of the minority that is actually the Republican Party's base. And that is the great political liability for elected Republicans right now. The Republican Party is shifting themselves so far to the right to deal with their own base that they are now really completely in alignment with the farthest right edge of their party. There are two ways to move a political party in one ideological direction or another. First, you have to elevate to leadership positions the more extreme members of your party, right? The most ideologically pure members of your party, and you have to demand that everybody go along with their policy preferences. But you also have to make sure that moderates in your party lose their power. You have to purge the moderates from any positions of power. But that sort of purge, that sort of enforcement of ideological rigidity leaves a good part of the electorate in play for some other politician to come along and capture. It's not just the Democratic base who's for tax hikes on the rich. It's everybody who is not in the Republican base. It is a very, very, very large majority of the country. President Obama is now barnstorming around the country on the basis of the single most popular economic idea in the nation, if you consider the polling on it. Remember the Lamar Alexander bug, the Cosbarella Lamar Alexanderi? It is a specific species of something that's called a springtail. The springtail was long considered to be an insect, but now it is no longer considered to be an insect by most scientists who study these things. Instead, the Lamar Alexanderi bug is being classified now as a hexapod. We seem to be getting to the point where Republican moderates, or even the moderate conservatives among the Republicans, are no longer allowed to be considered Republicans anymore. I do not know if we will be calling them hexapods in the future or conservative Democrats or what, but there appears to be no more room for them in their own party.